Thanks. So we're going to be using the chat to take questions, and you can access the chat on your Zoom control panel. And right now we're going to take a couple of polls real quick. I'm launching what brings you here today. If you would just share with us what your role is. Are you a parent, guardian, educator, community partner, a self-advocate, or maybe you're from some other area that we didn't touch on? And we have just a couple of seconds more. Okay, everyone has filled out the poll, and so we are 43% parents and guardians, and we have 29% are educators, 29% are community partners. Awesome, thanks for sharing that information. So let's go ahead and ask you, what age is the child or children that you're representing today? Are they birth to 5, 6 to 10-year-olds, 11 to 15-year-olds, 16 to 21-year-olds, or are they older adults? This helps us really when we're talking about our content. That's awesome. Thanks for taking that poll. We have 17% birth to 5. Awesome, you guys. This is the greatest time to be learning this information. 6 to 10, 17%. 11 to 15-year-olds, 33%. Great transition age too. And then we have an older adult, 33%. Okay, and last poll, and then we can get started. Could you please share where you're coming to us from today? Are you in one of the counties that we've identified, or are you in a different county? Wow, great representation from Deschutes County today. Thank you. All right, so Callie, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks so much, Jenny, for getting us started today. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Callie Cackley. I am Program Coordinator here at Central Oregon Disability Support Network. And what brings me to this work, I'm trying to get this screen slide to go. It's not letting me do that, Jen. There, oh, there it goes. Okay, sorry, it was having a lag here. So what brings me to this work is my daughter, Mia. Our oldest child is Mia. She's 11 years old. She has Down syndrome. So I have her, and then I also have a 9-year-old son, Liam, and a 7-year-old son, Nolan, who you see in the photo, and my husband, Justin. So what brings me to this work is Mia. So she joined our family 11 years ago, and we found out the night that she was born that she had Down syndrome. We were not expecting that news, but it has turned out to be one of the greatest surprises of our life. What you can see here in this picture, what she's doing is she's showing her muscles, wearing her I Can Move Mountains shirt, and she's wearing her mismatched socks for World Down Syndrome Day last year in 4th grade. So she is what my passion, and this is why I'm so excited to be with you guys today, is my experience as a parent, and so many things that I've learned from other parents before me is what fuels me in this work, and that's why I'm here. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to you, Stephanie.
I turn my video on and then I turn it off again. Hi, I am Stephanie Hunter, and I am a parent. I also a behavior professional in Central Oregon, and I'm a board member of Central Oregon Disability Support Network. What brings me here today is my daughter, Libby. She is a senior in high school now, and I was introduced to person-centered planning, thinking, and approaches when she was very young, before she transitioned to kindergarten, and I really credit those values and also being a part of the family network to the outstanding person she is today. This is she and I are doing some volunteer work for a CODSN event. I can still drag her out with me to do, volunteer work. She's my best friend in the whole wide world, and I'm gonna cry every day when she goes to college.
I love it. So I'm gonna kick us off here and just give you an idea and an overview of what we're gonna cover today during our time together. So first, we're gonna define and talk about what is person-centered planning. And then we're going to kind of move into the framework around disability as natural. And that there's several key tenets to that we'll go over, but that's a really big piece before we move into any actual person-centered planning is the framework that we're working with and the, our values about disability. Then we're going to move into talking about strengths-based approaches. And then we'll talk about person-first language, a vision for the future. And then we'll move into how to create a person-centered plan. And then we'll talk about how you can use this person-centered plan. And at the end, we'll have time to go over questions, and then we're going to share some additional resources that we have for you. So go ahead, Stephanie, I'm going to pass it to you.
So a person-centered plan, there's a person-centered plan, which can be a document. And I think what you're also going to learn is person-centered approaches and thinking as well. So it's, the document is definitely something that I've used as a parent over the years to introduce my daughter to the community with about who she is, not leading with the diagnosis. It's who she is, how to help her be successful. We used a person-centered plan for the transition to kindergarten, completely changed the conversation from we will consider your wishes, Miss Hunter, to but of course she's going to be included in her general education classroom with the support that she needs. So it's been a huge life changer for her, but also just how she views herself. So with that person-centered approach, we center our kids, the person that we support, and who they are, what's important to them in all of our decisions and actions. The goal is that full life that is joyful and painful and everything in between. It's having all the same opportunities that everyone else has, but you might need a little bit more support, and that's fine. It's also helping to set that stage for self-determination, the ability to be a problem solver, take pride in your skills. It also influences how others treat you and view you when you are on that path towards self-determination. It helps to increase your opportunities for participation in the community. One of the values that I learned really early on was don't ask permission for your child with a disability to do things that any other kid, just you sign the form and you drop them off. And the first time I kind of did this experiment was swim lessons. And so signed her up for swim lessons and didn't say, oh, and she has autism. I'm just like, here's my kid and, here's the water, drop her in. And of course I'm, panicking, and I'm noticing every little thing that she does that isn't quite what the other kids are doing. And I'm like, oh, I need to, tell this 16-year-old swim instructor that she has autism. And my husband, tells me to stop freaking out. So I did. And it really hit home for me when the swim lesson ended. My daughter, runs up to me, and the swim instructor approaches Libby and says, you did pretty good, but you need to listen better, and walked away. And I was like, oh my goodness, if I would have freaked out and said, oh, she has autism and you need to do this, this, and this, she would have, the instructor might have not even bothered to give that feedback. Or she would have only given it to me. She went straight to my kid and gave her that feedback. And that was really told me that I was doing the right thing there, and that's the path I wanted her to be on. I wanted people to give her the feedback, not come to me with the feedback. So that person-centered thinking really helped me on that path. The other thing we do with person-centered planning is we're identifying those individual hopes, dreams, interests, and desires. If your kid says, I want to be an astronaut, we're not going to be, oh, well, you can't be an astronaut because your disability. We're going to be like, alrighty, well, let's get working on that. And being an astronaut might mean science and math and all the things, or I want to paint my ceiling, blue and put some stars on it. So what does being, so it's all about those hopes and dreams, and it's saying, tell me more. What does that look like? And then that journey to those hopes and dreams to make that dream a reality.
Thank you, Stephanie. I just echo everything that you just said. Another thing that we're gonna kind of spend a little bit of time on today that is so important is the concept that disability is natural. So I am really grateful that I received kind of a lot of this training and this information the year before Mia went to kindergarten. I participated in a kind of a cohort of parents that were preparing for that big transition. And I was taught a lot about the disability as natural concept, having high expectations, making a person-centered plan. And I realized that it was valuable at the time, but even looking back, I don't even think I realized how valuable it was until I had this aha moment as a parent. It was kind of my first big, I almost missed this opportunity moment. So I'm actually going to share the picture that you're seeing here is of Mia. And that's my daughter. This was a couple years ago. I think this was second grade, I want to say, was her first year playing softball. And this is her hitting the ball off the pitch. And then what you also see is the picture below is her winning the game ball from her coach. And so this is what I wrote after that experience, because it just really moved me and it just solidified and cemented in me why it's so crucially important that we have high expectations and presume competence of our kids. Without them, we risk never tapping into their full potential and allowing them to have experiences that make them human, make us human. So here's what I had written as a reflection of this day. So I have a story to tell. Fear is a liar. If I'm being honest, I was 5 seconds away from not signing Mia up for Little League softball. They don't have aids provided like the Ben Park and Rec program does, and I was nervous and afraid that Mia would not be able to meaningfully participate. But this was the team that all of the other kids in her class and all of her Girl Scout friends were going to be playing softball on, and this is the team she wanted to be on. I almost let my own limiting beliefs keep her from this opportunity and robbed our amazing community of the chance to get to share this with her too. And you know what? She's loving every minute of softball. Tonight, she earned the game ball from her coach because when she got up to bat on this play, the bases were loaded and they hadn't scored yet on this inning. And there were already 2 outs. Not only did Mia get a hit from a pitch, but she made it safely to first base and her team went on to score 5 times and she scored one of those runs. She also got a hit every single time she was up to bat, and she only needed to use the tee once. I'm so proud of this girl right here. She works so dang hard and with such a great attitude, and she never gives up. Presuming competence and having high expectations as a parent can be scary and hard. But over and over in Mia's life, I've been reminded of how critical it is for us and others in her life to believe big in her and for her, in her and for her, and then support her while she strives to reach her fullest potential. Keep on, girlfriend. You've changed my mind and my heart over these years of being your mom, and there are many more out there for you to teach. So the reason I share this story is because I was 2 seconds away from not signing her up for this, not letting her be on a team with her friends, just kind of going, I don't think she's gonna be able to see the ball, or what if it's awkward, or what if the kids get frustrated with, I had all these limiting beliefs that almost made it so that we didn't even ever see this happen. And then it really unfolded a couple years of her participating with her peers on this team with coaches that are part of her Girl Scouts troop as well, and people in our community that are thrilled to have her with us. And I would have shared the video of this moment, but it would have just been obnoxious of me screaming with excitement and everybody else on the sidelines cheering when this happened. But I think it's important to remember because it can be really easy for us to slip into that safety zone as parents of not wanting, to see our kids fail or not wanting to put them out there. And when we do that, we risk not letting them have experiences that make them human. So I just think that that's a really important concept. And if there's one thing that I could tell a new mom or a young parent, it would be presume competence and see what support needs they have once you set the bar here, but don't start the bar here. Because if you start the bar here, this is where they may max out. If you set the bar here and then you find that they need some supports, but they're able to get to here, that's a huge opportunity for our kids. So I just think it's important to remember that. Another few tenets of the disability is natural concept are trusting humanity, dignity of risk, and self-determination. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to Jenny, and she's going to share about dignity of risk for us.
So before I get started on that, I nearly cried when you read that, Kelly. That was so amazing.
It was an amazing moment.
So for some of you, these terms that we're using might be the first time you've heard concepts like this. And so for our family, it was Christian's junior year in high school that we were introduced to these concepts. And, we came to the game pretty late. So if you guys are here earlier on, kudos to you. So Christian had spent all of his educational career at that point in segregated settings and was only on track to finish high school with a certificate of attendance, which was just recognizing that he had had his butt in a chair for 4 years. And we wanted more, and Christian wanted more. He wanted to walk with his class and have a diploma. And so we really started looking at his trajectory differently and thinking about what Christian's dreams were and what his goals were. And so he did graduate with an extended diploma, and he went to prom, as you can see in those 2 pictures on the slide there. And we were able to get to the real nuts and bolts of those goals by what's called a facilitated person-centered plan. So it's a big concept that Stephanie will talk about a little more later on. But we used that tool to help us and to help Christian articulate what his hopes and dreams were for the future and for his life after school. And Christian was really clear that he wanted to go to the prom, walk with his class across the stage, and graduate with his peers. And he wanted to attend the graduation night party, just like all of his other classmates. And that at the party that occurs in our school district, it follows the graduation ceremony. And so it's an all-night party, and there is a non-disclosed location that it occurs at. So the morning of the graduation rehearsal, they have a breakfast, and you bring any personal items that you want to take to the party to the rehearsal, and they're in a Ziploc bag, and you hand them over, and you don't see them again until you get to the destination of the graduation when you get off the bus after graduation party starts. And so there are no cell phones, there are no personal items, you're not allowed to wear sweatshirts or pockets so that the kids can't hide cell phones and give away the destination. And so it's a security protocol that they've put in place. So after the graduation ceremony, Christian walked across the stage with his peers. He gets changed out of his cap and his gown, and he is in that situation that a lot of us find ourselves in, where we've got a lot of lag time and we're waiting for the buses to load, we're waiting for them to leave, and Christian starts to get super nervous and anxious. And to tell you the truth, so does his mom. And some of his friends come over and they say, Mrs. Cavano, we got this. We see Christian starting to get a little uncomfortable and nervous. And I said, yeah, I think he's starting to really second guess his decision. They said, we got this. And they led him by the arm onto the bus and waved goodbye. And that was the last I saw of him. So my husband and my other 2 children, we go home, and they go up to bed, and I sit on the couch and I turn the TV on, and I am just settling in for a long night because I know that I'm not going to be able to sleep. And this mama bear has major anxiety and is absolutely petrified. And to full disclosure here, a couple of weeks beforehand had conversations with some of the volunteer parents. And I said, Christian's going to be going to grad night. And if you would just exchange phone numbers with me so that if he is done at some point and needs to come home, I can come get him. And would you just text me? And then I found out that his physical therapist was also going to be a volunteer for a young lady that utilized a wheelchair. And so I asked her if she would just keep an eye out, and if he got overwhelmed and done, that she would reach out to me and I could come get him. And I made it really clear I didn't want this to be an exception, and I didn't want it to be different than any of the other kids. I wanted him to have this experience. So please don't tell me where it is unless this actually comes to fruition. So I'm sitting on the couch, and about 11 o'clock, I get a text, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is it. I'm going to go get him. Well, it wasn't the text that I thought I was going to get. Christian is on a mechanical bull. He's got his arm in the air. He's waving it around, and he's got the biggest grin from ear to ear. And he is just so excited and having the time of his life. And then a little bit further on, I get another text, and it's Christian in the swimming pool, and he is playing water polo with all his friends. And then I get another text, and he is playing poker. And so at some point, this mama bear, who has had so much anxiety and has just gone through this whole graduation process and ceremony and angst, falls asleep on the couch. And the next thing, my alarm on my phone is waking me up saying it's 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's time for his dad to go get him and pick him up from the school where the bus was dropping him off. So the picture on the slides that you see of Christian in the white shirt with the senior on it is Christian running up our driveway to tell me all about how exciting his grad night was. And I'm getting all teary again, because even now, after all of this time, it still is amazing to me that this dignity of risk that oftentimes is really hard for us as parents to wrap our arms around is super important. We need to give them the opportunities to be independent and to thrive and to grow. And one of the ways that you grow is by stretching and being uncomfortable and being in the moment and learning from that. I want you as parents to remember that it is at times really important for us to hold our kids close, but at other times it's really helpful for us to try and let go and to let them launch and to be independent and to be as independent as they can be for who they are. Thanks, Callie.
Thank you so much for sharing that story, Jenny. Wow. So another really important piece to this disability is natural is the idea of trusting humanity. And so I have another story to share that kind of amplifies this, because again, along with the idea of dignity of risk, I think as parents, especially parents that are raising kids with disabilities, it can be really easy to separate ourselves from others or to feel separated from our communities, and to let other people in that don't necessarily understand our lived experience. But I found, again, through this story, how beautiful it is when a community feels like they're a part of our story and our journey, and that we can trust humanity, we can trust other people. So what you see here on one side of the slide is the picture of Mia and with the Rock Your Socks for World Down Syndrome Day image. So normally, being, the mama bear that I am, I would do, like send a letter home with the kids in the class for World Down Syndrome Day, and I would explain what it is, and I would do some advocacy thing, and right, that's what I would do. Well, this particular year, I just completely forgot about it until the night before. It's March 20th. So the next morning is 321, which is 3 copies of the 21st chromosome. And I went, oh my gosh, it's World Down Syndrome Day. And I completely forgot to tell the class and the teacher and the parents and the school and try to do something special. So I threw this image up on social media and just said, if anybody wants to join us for World Down Syndrome Day tomorrow, rock your socks with us to celebrate our differences, really kind of casual. But because of over the years of connecting with our community and becoming friends with the other people at school and being connected to the office manager and the PTO and all these other things, we had a lot of people on my social media that were also connected to the school. I didn't think much of it. I woke up, got my kids ready. My kids put their socks on. We celebrated with our family, but I did not expect it to be something that our community was able to participate with us because I dropped the ball. So I was a blubbering mess for the rest of the morning because I walked my kids into school, and the first thing I see is the office manager, and she comes around the desk and she comes out and shows off her socks to Mia and says, Mia, I'm celebrating World Down Syndrome Day with you today. I'm going, how did you know that today's World Down Syndrome Day, right? So then the next place I go is my son's area of the school. It's his wing of all the second grade teachers. And they all come up to us with Mia and with Liam, and they had just found out that morning that it was World Down Syndrome Day. They were already at school, so they'd gone into the staff lounge and they'd switched socks with each other so that they could all participate and celebrate with us, right? So I'm just like a bubbling mess at this point. So then I go drop Mia off at her class, and all of these classmates showed up with their socks on. So these are parents that are friends of mine on social media that had seen the post that wanted to participate, so that then they told their kids all about it, and it was a great teaching moment for them. And apparently one of the people who had seen my post was my friend that's the office manager, and had emailed it to the entire staff at school just to say, if anybody wants to participate in celebrating this kiddo in our community, this is one way you can do that, without me prompting anything. And it was just a moment for me of going, there are so many people in our corner, and there's so many people that want to be part of this journey with us, and I need to trust humanity and let people be part of that with us. Another really kind of powerful piece for that too was the second grade team. So my son was in second grade, Mia was in third grade. And it was also a very surprise opportunity because the teacher, when she came out and she was wearing her socks and they were so excited to be part of it, she asked, I wish that we could do some kind of a presentation about Down syndrome today on World Down Syndrome Day. Would you be interested in doing that? And so I said, I guess. So I called my boss and said, I'm not coming into work because I have to get ready for a Down syndrome awareness presentation in my son's class because they all want to now learn about Down syndrome. So I just think it's a really good reminder that we have to trust humanity. We got to trust that the people in our communities are good and they want to be part of this journey with us, and to allow them the opportunity to do that.
This is, so talking about self-determination, this is Libby on her first, and according to her last student panel she'll ever be on. But that's, part of the story. But, Libby, I've always included her in her person-centered planning process, either, like pulling something together, which we'll show you some examples of, that she gives to her teacher or shares with Girl Scouts or camps and things like that. So that the values of, viewing herself in presuming competence in herself were kind of part of that. So using that as a tool also to teach her that disability is an attribute, it's not a deficit. And I also had to go at her pace, because she was definitely picking up signals from a young age that I need to hide these parts of myself. She wasn't getting it at home, but I couldn't fix the world. We just talk about trusting humanity, but she was still getting those signals. So trust humanity, and those signals are out there too. And so I always kept that on the table, like your disability is an attribute, your support needs are a right. They're not an extra thing. They're just something you need, just like I need glasses, and some people might need shoes with orthotics. It's just a support need, and you have a right to ask for that support need. And one of her disabilities is that she's hard of hearing, and that was being able to advocate for making sure that the teacher turned on closed captioning in school and things like that, because even though it's in her IEP and part of her plan, she still needed to be able to ask for that support. So we worked with those things over the years, and whenever disability would come up, she would kind of shy away from it, and I'd be like, well, I'll walk your path with you. But where really things kind of shifted in a wonderful way was when she pushed back on me. And she was in 8th grade and in middle school, and she really wanted to go to, we have a Redmond Proficiency Academy. So it's a charter school, public charter school. And I'm, like, oh no, you're going to public school, because they'll know how to meet your needs at public school. They won't know how to meet your needs at this, charter school. And, she really pushed back on me. I was like, okay, you know what? If in 8th grade, if you're missing an assignment and you go ask your teacher about it, if you are getting behind on something and you ask for help about it, and you are solving these problems with your teachers and just asking me for help if you're not being heard. She did it. Her 8th grade year was, she really was like, I want to go to this charter school, and this is what I need to do to be able to show my mom that I can handle this. And I couldn't say no. She even filled out the paperwork to go. So how can you say no at that point? So the other wonderful thing about going, to this charter school and really pushing herself to be able to I don't want to say overcome, but just recognize her support needs was, you can see this little wood cookie that she's wearing. She literally had just come from being a counselor at outdoor school to this panel. And she, part of that, that's as far as hopes and dreams and kind of what she wants to do, camp is everything to her, and that community that she's built. And one of the things that they do these circles. And so when she was first getting involved in camp, they were, sharing about themselves in these circles. And she, disclosed that, she has autism and is hard of hearing, and, talked about that. And that was really the first time that I had ever known for her to kind of self-identify. And she came home to tell me about it, that she shared that because another student in the circle shared that they also experienced autism. And I said to her, I'm like, you probably gave him the courage to share that by sharing that first. And so she, you know, now, you know, she's a senior and she's all excited because there's a deaf representation on The Bachelor. And so she's, you know, like really start, you know, and I mean, she's, you know, I'm like, when you go to college, you're going to have to be able to tell your teachers, I need this, this, and this. So keeping self-determination on the table, going at her pace, and then you know, led to her pushing back on me, which was a wonderful learning experience.
Such a good lesson for us. I'm trying to click to the next slide. Sorry, my doesn't want to do it. So I will just start and then hopefully the computer here catches up. There it is. Okay, so the next concept is starting with strengths. And I just want to share this quote because it's just such a really simple and beautiful way to explain this concept. So it says, everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. And this is an Albert Einstein quote. And I just want to remember that, you know, we all possess different strengths. And if we compare ourselves to other people's strengths and what they're good at in their lane, or if we do that for our kids, we risk them always thinking that they are not capable or that they don't have what it takes. And so it's just important for us to remember that every individual has strengths. And we're going to teach you a little bit later on here how we can reframe some of the support needs or some of the things that might be hard and reframing those things into strengths-based statements. But I want to read you this quote by Kathy Snow. She's just an amazing mentor and writer on this topic and someone that I've been learning from since Mia was young about how we approach our kids. And this is what it says. It says, if we start with strengths, we might begin to see a new person, as well as new strategies and new opportunities. Imagine the possibilities when the person is defined by strengths instead of perceived deficits, and the impact on goals, activities, friendships, employment, and more. How might this make a difference in how we see the person, how others see the person, and most importantly, how the person sees themselves? Make your list of strengths long and add to it on a regular basis. And that's again, Kathy Snow in her article, Start with Strengths. And you exemplified that beautifully, Stephanie, in your example even of, you know, Libby believes who she is and loves who she is partially because you've modeled that and you've allowed that for her and you've affirmed that in her. And I just want to remind us that, you know, our kids hear what we say. They hear how we talk about them. They hear what we say about them. They pick up on that. And so I think as parents, sometimes we can let our guards down and kind of talk about the diagnoses and the deficits or some of the things that are very maybe real in our kids' lives, but to be careful that we're forming how they think about themselves as well. So when we can start with their strengths, set the stage at a meeting, an IEP meeting, or set the stage in a person-centered plan with what they bring to the table as a strength, I think it can just change our kids' personalities. It can change their self-esteem. And along that same line, there's this concept of person-first language. And again, this is a Kathy Snow attributed thing, but you see it in the picture here that there's a bowl of apples, right? They're all red apples and one green apple, but the important piece is that they're more alike than they are different. And disability is a natural human experience, and how we talk about it matters. And so the idea of person-first language puts the person before the disability, and it describes what a person has and not who a person is. So another really important way of doing this is, like when we're describing a person, we are not leading with their disability. So the example here could be, are you cancerous or do you have cancer, right? Is the person handicapped or disabled, or does the person have a disability, right? So we're still describing, you know, what the support need might be, but we're doing it where we're putting the person first. So using a diagnosis as a defining characteristic reflects a prejudice, and it also robs the person of the opportunity to define themselves. And I think that that's a really important, crucial thing that we need to think about when we're talking about our kids and we're talking about people in our lives. You know, I don't want people to define me by the one thing that I really, really struggle with. Oh, well, you know, she's the anxious one, right? I don't want people to define me by the thing that I struggle with the most. I want people to see me for who I am, and that's something that's a part of who I am. So we really want to help you guys understand how we reframe some of the language around these things. Here's an example of our person-centered plan for Mia. Sorry that it's so bright. She has a favorite color pink and she's very insistent that it gets used on things. But this is an example of a way that we set stage with strengths. And I think it's really powerful. So one thing that we do with her and with her team is we have a vision statement. This isn't a required piece of a person-centered plan, but for us, it felt really important. And this is one of the things we developed in her transition to kindergarten year was, where do we want her to go? What do we want to see in her life? Where do we want her to see herself going? And that has her options, right? And so we include this on everything, her vision statement. And ours right here, it says, we envision that through our family, community, and educational opportunities that Mia will gain the skills and confidence necessary for her to lead a full, inclusive, joyful, interdependent life. We want Mia to know that she has purpose and that she is a valuable contributing member of our family and our community. We see her being respected, loved, and enjoyed by those around her. We expect that she will learn from her peers and that they will also learn from her, and that she will have meaningful friendships with her peers. So the reason we say that at the beginning is because we think it's important that every decision that we're making and everything that we're putting together, that we have the long-term vision in sight, because that's going to inform the decisions that we make and the things that we put in place to help her get where she wants to go. So that's a helpful element for us to have on. It's not required, vision statement. Don't get overwhelmed with that if you don't have a vision statement. But I do think it's helpful for us as parents to kind of always try to keep what's happening in the long term in the forefront, because it will help us make informed decisions for what needs to happen now. Another element that we'll talk about, and we'll go through each of these categories here in the next few slides. But a couple things that I wanted to point out about what we include on Mia's. Under strengths and gifts, you'll see that it says reader and learner. And I think it's really critically important that we see every student as a learner, every kid as a learner, whether they're a learner of a master of a certain subject or not. All kids are learners. And I think when kids know that they're learners and they know we see them as learners and we have the expectations that they can learn, they show us that they can learn. And so I want everybody who's working with Mia and who sees her plan to see what she's capable of. So it doesn't say on here, struggles with, and puts the subjects that she's struggling with on here. We're focusing on, this is a strength, that she's a reader and she's a learner. She wants to learn. So how do we build on that strength to help in the areas where we might need more support? So I think that's a really important thing to include as a strength, is if there's a subject or a thing that your kid is a learner of, to make sure you include that. And there's a lot of other things on here that you can see for what works. So these are support needs that if I have her going with a PSW or to a summer camp or into kindergarten, we used her person-centered plan. Here's what works for her. It's not saying here's all the things she can't do. It's saying this is what does work for her. So knowing her schedule and her routine, rather than it saying she's rigid or she's not flexible, it says that she benefits from knowing her schedule and her routine, right? We're saying the same thing, but we're stating it as, this is how you support this need rather than this is a deficit. Because I think also this is more helpful to caregivers. This is more helpful to people. Actually telling them what works and what's going to help make this person have a successful day at camp or a day, at whatever we're at. Actually telling them a first then statement is really helpful for my kid. Peer models really work. This gives them tools to go, okay, like we're going to start there rather than seeing a whole list of diagnoses and things that are hard for the kiddo. That doesn't actually give people a tool. So I just wanted to highlight those couple elements of ours, and then I'm going to go ahead and pass it over and let the other gals share examples from what they have used for theirs.
This is, one of Libby's more stripped down person-centered plans. They call these one-page profiles. When she transitioned to kindergarten, it was a little bit more detailed and a little bit longer. And one of the wonderful things, and Callie kind of hit on this, is it's really, we know our kids so well, and those unique support needs, and being able to kind of have a bullet point for someone else to support. When she was between kindergarten and first grade, she had the opportunity to go to a Nike summer camp. And they called me after a couple days, and they were really, really struggling with some behavior challenges. And I said, oh, did the school send over her person-centered plan? And they said, no, we didn't see that. So I emailed it to them. didn't hear anything, checked back a couple days later, and I was like, how are things going? They're like, oh, we're totally fine now. We have the instructions to Libby. So these can be really great, tools in that direction too, and it's really like in these one-page profiles, the most important things to Libby, how to support Libby, her strengths and skills. One of the bullets on here, she prefers girl with long hair in play, books, toys, and movies. And I cannot tell you how important that was to her. Girls have long hair, boys have short hair. And it would just like, you could just watch like her mind exploding whenever she would see, that different hair lengths and different genders. So in first grade, the teacher said to me, she said, oh, we're going to have the 8th graders buddy up with, the first graders. And then, of course, this look of horror on my face. And she goes, and don't worry, I found her a girl with long hair. So those fine details are important. So you will get a link to some different one-page profile templates that you guys can draw from too, because these quick snapshots are just as helpful as the more detailed ones.
Awesome. Thanks, Steph. So this is an example of one of Christian's one-page profile person-centered plans. And this one was focused more on transition when he was in the transition program, so from 18 to 21 years. And it was helpful in this plan to have short-term goals and long-term goals as well, because we're working with many agencies and partners like vocational rehabilitation. And oftentimes when he was doing volunteer opportunities to gain work skills, he was working with like the local Walgreens or the library. And so this would help with the people that he was working alongside to understand what worked for Christian, what didn't work for Christian, and what his interests and strengths were. I think one of the most powerful things this profile for Christian was in his high school years though, and he would share this at his IEP meeting. And this was how Christian actually participated in his meetings. So Christian had back then a very complex communication style, and he used a voice output device, and he used sign language and gestures to communicate. And so for him, this was a very powerful tool because he could come to a meeting and he could hand this out and he felt like he had his voice being heard. This was the stepping stone for him to share what he wanted at school and what his vision for the future was. And it was the stepping stone for his self-advocacy skills. So we talked about self-determination and self-advocacy. And this is one of the places where they get to practice this. So students can use the one-page profile to inform the process. It also was the stepping stone for him because at the end of his high school years, he was actually presenting what his goals and what his vision was through an iPad presentation that he and his teacher came up with. It was also a very important tool for the teachers in his classroom and for any of the substitute teachers or substitute assistants that would come in to help, because they would put his one-page profile on the bulletin board next to the classroom telephone. And anyone that was coming in to meet the class for the first time would get to see what Christian's strengths and what his gifts were. And it was more of a strength-based document than what a typical IEP would be. So I think that, it's really important when we're looking at these things. Kelly, if you want to bet, yeah, perfect. If you wanted to really think about, when we look at this circle, all of the areas of the life, of a whole life, that we can look at. So I encourage you to look at the people that are in your child's life. Look at the school setting, look at their home life, look at who are the members in their community that can influence this document, and asking them, what do you see my child's strengths as? What do you see their gifts and capacities and interests? Because oftentimes we as parents see one thing, and people that work with our child or hang out with our child will see a different set of skills.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. The first time we made our person-centered plan, we had our PSW fill out some stuff and edit it and add to it, and my parents and anybody who was a natural support, paid supports, her teachers all look at it and contribute because we all bring different views into it. And so it's always really helpful to have a variety of perspectives. Here's a template that is really simple, but it kind of breaks up the buckets of the plan, the making the plan. And we're going to kind of go through each of these individually, but I kind of wanted you to see just an overall kind of, these are the different buckets that you want to consider when you're doing a brain dump to start planning for your person-centered plan. So another thing that I like to include is the hopes and dreams. On ours, so this is an excerpt from Mia's person-centered, or not person-centered plan, her IEP slideshow. So now she's 5th grade. This was the one that was transitioning her into 5th grade, and it was obviously all on Zoom with the pandemic. So we had her build the slideshow. We supported her to make it, and then tell her teachers and her staff everything that she wanted to do and to learn. Because again, that helps set the bar for high expectations for them to hear from her. I want to take cooking classes. I want to get driving lessons. I want to learn to babysit. I want to have a job. I want to live in my own house. And pictures of her and things that she wants to do. And that's a really good thing to include on here, and let your child, especially if they're at an age where they can participate in this process, asking them, what are your favorite things? What do you want to do? What do you want to learn? And including that when you're making this document is so important. Another piece is, so one of the buckets is the interests and strengths. So we put on here some prompts and some questions to ask when you're kind of making each of these categories. So what engages the person's attention? What keeps them busy? And here's little things to think through, because it's something that might seem like a small thing to us as parents because it's a natural support that we do every day. Somebody who's meeting that person for the first time might not know that that person is motivated by that comfort item or that toy or that dinosaur or that thing. So an example we have of this is one of the ways that one of Mia's teachers recently helped support her in school. So on ours, you know, has that Mia loves her cats, Asher and Penny, and she loves cooking and she likes birthdays. Her birthday is the best day of the year for her, and cupcakes, right? So she was struggling to engage with this distance learning math lesson on Zoom. And rather than having the math problem be about frogs and leap pads, her teacher recognized that she was struggling. And because she knows her and she knows her interests, she's reframed the story around how many cupcakes were on the plate and how many cupcakes did our cat Penny steal and eat to be a naughty cat. So it went from her completely not wanting to be part of math to the story now engages something I'm interested in, that she absolutely participated with the rest of the math lesson when it was about Penny and cupcakes and her naughty cat eating cupcakes. So small thing that seems like a small detail that totally was able to be used by her team as a tool to re-engage her in the lesson because it's something she cared about. So I just think that that's a really important thing to think about. What are the things that you do at home or that their kid is interested in that we can put on paper for this person who's meeting them for the first time and a snapshot to know. So I'm going to pass this over to you, Stephanie. I think you had an example. If we have time, I don't know if we have time, but if you wanted to share your example. You're muted. You're muted. We can't hear you.
Ah, man. Okay. So yeah, I'll try to sum it up really quick. So, you know, my daughter is, you know, she self-defines herself as shy, and she was always, you know, like she would always kind of attach herself on the playground to like the leader kid. And so she was very comfortable with that, but she didn't see herself in that role of being leader when she was pretty young. You know, so her personality was a driver of you know, her strengths, gifts, and how she viewed herself. And one of my favorite stories about that was, it was a very, very, very cold winter. And we had some, you know, neighbors that were houseless that were sleeping outside. And, you know, I'm talking to her about this. And when we got back home, she said, you know, I think everybody should have a home. And I said, you know who really likes to hear what kids think? The president. You should write the president a letter. And she just slammed down what she was doing, runs to her room, slams the door, and I can just hear her like crying in there. And I'm like, what happened? So so I, you know, gave her a couple minutes, came in with a glass of water, and I was like, Libby, what happened? And she says, you know, I'm too shy to write the president. So when we're looking at strengths and gifts, personality is a huge part of that. So, you know, she didn't see herself as a leader, you know, per se, but it also, you know, wearing my behavior professional hat, it helped explain that, you know, tantrum that I just saw through that lens of her strengths and gifts. So reframing, this is something that we both teach ourselves to do. We are also modeling for others. We're talking about a positive reframe. So deficit-based language is, you know, can't walk, wheelchair bound. Strengths-based is going to be used as a, you know, mobility device, uses a wheelchair for, you know, to get around. Instead of nonverbal, you know, uses an augmented communication system, uses sign language. So we're going to move from that that deficit-based to strengths-based language. And we would, there's are you going to throw that chart up, or the example chart, Callie?
Yeah, Jenny's
Okay.
gonna put it in the chat for people.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, perfect. So I'll just talk about it then. So these examples here, it's based on skills. You also might do that positive reframe around adjectives that people might, you might hear yourself using and need to, you know, self-correct, or you might be reframing for someone else to help them be more strength-based. One of my favorite that I hear all the time is attention seeking. And so that's unfortunately, attention seeking should be the most mundane thing we ever talk about, but people, when you hear it, your brain immediately goes to the negative places when you hear attention seeking. A positive reframe of that is they like being with you. They want to be seen, heard. They want to feel important or valued. They're affectionate, determined, persistent. So those positive reframes, again, both help, and our kids are in the audience, right? So those positive reframes are also how they are going to be defining themselves today and in the future. What works and doesn't work, you guys got to see some examples on Callie and Jenny's person-centered documents. And so what I like about what works and doesn't work is it's the roadmap to how to be successful. And, you know, we all do our best when things are working. And we can also probably, for the most part, effectively communicate what works and doesn't work for us. But when we are in the role of advocating and helping to support, you know, our kids or other folks that we support, in that role, we're helping to create an environment where things are working. So you can learn skills to be self-determined and meet your hopes and dreams and follow your interests. And if you're not yet able to advocate for what works or doesn't work for you, or you need more tools or time to communicate that, and just having a quick snapshot of what works and what doesn't work, being able to hand that to a teacher or a staff person is really a key to a good day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another idea too is how to use this tool. Try to think of it really broadly. Like, this is a tool that you can use when you're talking about getting ready to go into kindergarten and introducing your student to the class or the teacher for the first time. And it can be used when you're going for your first job interview, or when you're going to summer camp, or you're joining a sports team, right? Or a club. So there is a wide variety of places that you can use this tool, and it's not one size fits all. So in the documents and resources, we're going to share a bunch of templates that you can use, as much as you can encourage your kiddo to participate by using their favorite colors and their favorite pictures and making it something that they're excited to share with people. We encourage. But we just wanted to remind you guys that there's a lot of ways that you can use this tool. It is not limited to a certain age group. And really, when you're using this person-centered planning approach, you can use this across the whole span of life. So we are running low on time, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to you, Jenny, and she's going to invite you into an opportunity we have coming up Monday.
So now we have really talked about what person-centered planning looks like and how important it can be as a tool. So come join us on Monday. We're going to have our monthly parent group, but we're going to break into groups and actually create a one-page plan for your child. So join us at 7 o'clock on Monday evening. Stephanie and Callie will be back with us, and we will walk through the process with you individually and help you to really think about what strengths and gifts your child has. I do want to just really quickly shout out also that we are sending out an evaluation at the end of the webinar, and we would love for you to fill it out. Once you fill out the evaluation, you'll go into a drawing for a $25 gift card. So please, we want to know what you thought about the training. We want to know feedback. This is the first time we've rolled this particular training out, and so any information that you want to give us would be awesome. This is the resource page. So we have popped in the chat all the way through tonight, Helen Sanderson and Associates, and some of the other links. So go ahead and if you have questions, you can put them in the chat, or we can open it up there. It's a small enough group that we could unmute you. So let us know if you have questions. I'm not seeing any questions come in yet. So if you would like to get in touch with us, Stephanie Hunter is, as I said, a behavior professional, and she's a parent, and you can reach her at the email address for shunter@opportunityfoundation.org. And Callie and I work at CODSN, and you can reach both of us through our first name and at codsn.org, or you could call us on the office phone number. I would encourage you to take a look at our webpage. We have lots of information on there, and we absolutely will have a recorded version of this training and the slide deck and all of the handouts up on the website. Probably not until Saturday, because I have a really big day tomorrow, but I'm hoping to get that up as soon as I can. And share it wide. We really want people to have this information. Thanks so much for joining us today. We were so excited you could spend the last hour with us. Oh my gosh, guys, we made it. It's 5:01. So if you have questions, please reach out to us. If we don't have the opportunity to connect tonight, we are happy to field questions through our email or phone calls at a later time. So thank you very much, and have a great evening.